The president said, as president, as husband, as father, as grandfather, he understands that the times are hard. He says the road to recovery will be hard and long. But we have started on a good footing by accepting that we are in a difficult place and are taking the difficult decisions. Do you agree? Are difficult decisions being taken? That will get us out. And he says, if anyone ever had any doubt about the need to be self-reliant, the point has now been forcibly drilled home to us. The pursuit of the Ghana Beyond Aid agenda is even more compelling now. Let us now, therefore, more than ever, hold our heads up high and face the future with courage, hope, and assurance. Let us recall our age-old Ghanaian values of hard work, enterprise, solidarity, dignity, and hospitality. Look around you, believe in Ghana, and be inspired by Ghana, because we will bounce back, and that is the way to bounce back. The unpopular E-levy bill is now law. Now what? What's your state of the nation on roads, healthcare, food, security, among others? We'll be right back to deal with the vexed matters. I'm your host, Samson Ladia. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. You're welcome. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And I'm your host, Samson Ladi Anyanini. It's brought to you by the kind sponsorship of Bank of Africa, strongest group and closest partner, MTN. Everywhere you go, Ashesi University educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Robert & Sons Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care service provider for 31 years. Waylead Properties, home is where one starts. CBG, we stand with you. Edlom Housing, where spacious homes cost less. Duraplus, where Duraplus goes, water flows. And Rehoboth Properties, quality housing for all. It's been a great, ending to the week, particularly with the performance of the Black Stars. They made all of us proud. And once again, the flag of Ghana is being hoisted all over the world. I mean, Ghanaians feel very proud. So why don't we start on that note? And that's why I shelve my take for this morning. My guests this morning are Alexander Kwamena Athenion Marking. He is MP, a Futu, and Deputy Majority Leader. Has been at his mischievous best this week, being celebratory and dodging the minority with a master stroke. Good morning and welcome to Newsfile.
Leonard, good morning, sir. If you take away the mischievous
best. Politics sometimes,
if you take it away,
those games make it interesting, don't they? Well, you beat them to it, and I think
no, you are talking about the majority.
Exactly.
But somebody may misconstrue that to mean.
But you are there. You are the majority leader.
There is
deputy majority leader.
No, there is a majority leader.
Okay.
The big man himself.
Also here in the studio is Mahama Ayariga, MP, Boku Central, and member, Constitutional, Legal, and Parliamentary Affairs Committee, and delegate ECOWAS Parliament. Thank you for making the time to join us, sir.
Thank you.
Right. It does appear quite obviously that they pulled up something that you least expected and they beat you to it.
I don't think so. I mean, in the first place, this is the only country in which a government will impose a tax on its citizens and celebrate it. I mean, this is the only country I've seen that.
Interesting note.
And organize birthday parties in celebration that...
Interesting note.
That as a president, you have imposed taxes on your citizens.
Interesting note there. And Martin Pebu is private legal practitioner. Thank you for joining us. Dr. Kenneth Ashigbe is Chief Executive Officer, Ghana Chamber of Telecommunications. Dr. Theo Champong will join us a little later. He's a political risk analyst and economist. So, gentlemen, good morning and welcome to Newsfile. So let me begin with Afia marking. The Black Stars. Let's hear what the president had to say, because he was very happy. He felt this was such a good birthday package to him.
Likely be kidnapped here. I will make it difficult for him to go back to Germany and to Dortmund. We want him here. But I would, Mr. Okriku, whatever you can do to make sure that the team stays together, at least until Qatar. Then afterwards we can take the long-term decisions. The reason is that a situation whereby Arsenal, Tottenham, and everybody is together in one arrangement. That's a formidable arrangement. Tottenham is very well represented here, both here and here. And oh yes, the Vice President. The Vice President is also a strong supporter of the cockerel of Spurs. So let's keep together. And the hunger, the desire, the determination that we saw in Kumasi, that we saw again yesterday, keep together. And out of it, I know something even greater is in the future for us.
Right. So, yes, we are excited, but is it going to be easy? We're going to meet Uruguay, Korea, and the others. It doesn't look like, people say our preparation is not the best at the moment. What we did in Kumasi and in Abuja should not be the measure of what we should look to.
Well, Samson, again, good morning, and thank you for the privilege to be part of your program this morning. Yes, to the Black Stars. Well, I was not too optimistic, because they often break our hearts.
I think almost all of us.
And
we just gave up.
You know, we hear God will make a way where there seems to be no way. We've seen a manifestation of it. So simply put, we don't have to give up. We have to be united and stay focused. And that is what they've demonstrated, that they knew that at home they had failed. And then going to Nigeria to meet the mighty Super Eagle, they were more than determined. And through that determination, they brought down that eagle. So congrats to them. At least looking at all the political tension, the debates, how politics has polarized us and all that, perish the thoughts. You know, at the time, if they had lost and the president's birthday, you know, somebody would have done politics with it. Like today, we are hearing from my respected colleague doing his own thing. But anyway, we congratulate them. Going to Qatar would require a new strategy, a new attitude, and I believe that the technical team should be ready to meet the challenge. It's not our first time of participating in the World Cup. You know, we had an opportunity in South Africa to make it to the final stage, and we blew it, unfortunately. Hard luck.
Yeah.
So
the Group H, Portugal, Uruguay, and Korea.
Well, to me, we can match up to them. Ghana has done it before. It's just a matter of being determined to move it there. After all, those days when we're doing well in the Black Starlet, Satellite, Meteors, we're meeting these countries and we're beating them. Oh, so what's new?
Okay.
Yes, we have a record of beating Uruguay. We have a record of beating Paraguay. We have a record of beating South Korea. So to me, there's nothing new. What is expected and what will be new will be the extent of the determination and the teamwork, technical discipline. That's
right.
it.
Mama, what do you think about the team we have now? It's not a team you can say is consistent in its game. It's been up and down. It's been a question of luck, somewhat.
I have a more optimistic view of the Black Stars. I say so because I happen to be fortunate to have been a minister for sports.
Right.
And I and the GFA took the same team to Equatorial Guinea. If you recall, Ghanaians were just as pessimistic as they are today about the Black Stars. But through a number of factors, one, good coaching, two, excellent technical support, and three, good motivation, they were able to go up to the finals, and even at the finals, they lost through penalties. I believe that the Black Stars that we have can face any team in the world. The president himself just acknowledged that these same players are playing in the best teams in Europe.
That's right.
So if they are capable individually of being part of the squads in the major European teams, then you take them and bring them to Ghana and put them together. The only thing you need to give them is what they get in Europe. And what do they get in Europe? They get good coaching, good technical support, and good motivation. That's all you need to do. So if we do those three, I am very confident that they will be able to face any team out there. Because all those who are playing for all the countries we are talking about, Uruguay and all this, they're also in Europe playing with them. So they know them, they are their teammates. So all they need is just good coaching and good technical support. So at this stage, you need to be assessing yourself. Is your coaching up to the standards? Is your technical team up to the task?
Right.
And if it is not, you need to beef it.
Okay. Martin, what do you say?
Well, Samson, is a pleasant surprise to me. For the Black Stars to have made it to the World Cup again, it's really a pleasant surprise because, to be honest with you, though one side of me was praying that we would win, inside me, I wasn't quite convinced that we have what it takes.
So I tell you what, I put the TV off. I couldn't watch. And once in a while, I'll just try and, put it on back to be sure, to just see the score line.
You see, that's it. So I didn't even have the confidence at all to watch the game. So I didn't watch it. Then, like you said, once in a while, I would ask for the results. Yes, that's how I also did it. So we thank God, it's good. At least, if not for anything at all, we would have the chance of, being called upon, being mentioned, at the World Cup. And that by itself, for me, is sufficient. If we go beyond the preliminary stages, wow, right, that would be equivalent to the cup for me. Because as I said, knowing what we have as of now, I didn't think we would have come this far. So anything beyond this stage is a bonus,
right,
to be frank with you.
Yeah, Chief Ken, what do you say? The only time I watch football is when the Black Stars is playing someone else.
Well, thank you very much, Samson, and good morning to all of us. For me, I also was, when we changed our coach and we brought a foreign coach, that's when I completely gave up on the Black Stars. But when we decided to put together another Ghanaian team to really head the team, in as much as I was not looking at the results, the empirical results from AFCON, I was still praying, because what I wanted to prove was that, a Ghanaian could lead us to do it, what the foreigner could not have done. So I was completely over the moon when we were able to beat the Green Eagles to it, because the Super Eagles to it. And so I'm hoping that beyond the three ingredients that Mama Erica mentions, I'm praying also that all of us would be united. Football is one of the things that actually brings us together, and we would not play any partisanship with it, and support the team. And I agree with the president that we should find a way of maintaining that 4-man squad and give them roles to play, and go into this game with that steel, believing in ourselves that we can do it. And, as has been shown in all times, anytime we've won anything, it's a Ghanaian who's leading the national team. And with that kind of support, we would be able to make it. And the thing about going to the World Cup is that not only will our names be mentioned, there's a good return on investment that would come to our game. It would come to our tourism. It will come to our business. And so it's really important that we focus on that and really push some investment into it, push some support into it. And I think that we might be able to do better than we have done. We might be able to get to the semi-finals. The only challenge is the fact that when we cross from the group stage, I hope we don't meet Brazil.
All right. Thank you very much. Of course, we're all praying, keeping our fingers crossed that they'll do Ghana proud once again. Hopefully, we don't have a Suarez situation when it is our time to shine. All right. So let's now get to the Parliament of Ghana. It's been a place that's been very interesting since it was reconstituted for this new regime. So let's watch and listen to a few of the members and the developments that happened as the E-levy bill, which is now an act, it is now law, assented to by the president. So it's in force, whether you like it or you don't. Interesting things happened at its passed by the one-sided majority house.
I want to thank you for the opportunity and to ask President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo to withdraw this punitive, regressive, insensitive tax, and that we do not support it, and you don't need any vehicle for Chop Chop to go and collect E-levy. So, Mr. Speaker, this side, we don't support E-levy. We will not support E-levy. Count us out of it. They can proceed with whatever business they want to do. I thank you, sir. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. Please wait me. The one from the tonight. Put the pressure. Put the pressure. Mr. Speaker.
As soon as practicable. You heard the speaker speak to. Usually when bills are passed by Parliament, we go through to ensure that the comments, the I's and the T's have been crossed, and so on and so forth. I guess we can spend today because of the match, I'm not sure that small committee can meet. Maybe after the President's address tomorrow. Quorum. Is there any issue about quorum? I'm not sure that quorum was an issue. There was quorum. Parker, certificate of agency. And you're asking whether the consideration was still on the lines of the certificate of agency. And certainly so. That is how come the procedural motions were stood down. Because it's been determined by the committee, the relevant committee, right, that the bill is of an urgent nature. The relevant provisions shall have to be stood down. The other day, there was this squabbling about procedural motions, and I was telling them that it was not required. Once the committee makes the determination, and perhaps it will be relevant for me to read the appropriate. Yes. Article 106 of the Constitution, clause 13 provides, where it is determined by a committee of Parliament appointed for the purpose that a particular bill is of an urgent nature, the provisions of the preceding clauses of this article, other than clause 1 and paragraph A of clause 2, shall not apply, and accordingly, the President shall give his assent to the bill on its presentation for assent.
Honourable members, the Electronic Transfer Levy Bill 2021 time and passed.
Here the Supreme Court is said that is dealt with under Article 104, which says the voting quorum at 1/2 of the membership of Parliament. Thus, I'm quoting, read together with Article 104.1, the quorum contemplated in Article 102 should be properly understood to mean the quorum for all other business of Parliament. Then it says quorum for voting, Article 104.1. That number cannot be less than 138. As poor as our maths and arithmetic is, less Ajua Safo is 137, less 1/2 of Parliament is equal to a charade of a decision that they think that is constitutionally right. Get it right, and we still were filing the stay of execution, which now has been properly and adequately filed. Therefore, the investor community should be interested in holding this government accountable. They said that I indicated that our country is tottering at the precipice of bankruptcy.
Right. So let's start from the very bottom. Mama Yarga, let's begin with Afinomakin first. Why is such an important piece of legislation, most controversial, which has forced government, you have tried to pass it, for a long time, and you have not been able to until this day. The government has been forced to literally go around the country, speak to people to get them to buy in. And then it's smuggled in the way it was, without prior notice.
Okay. So Samson, let me explain to you. Yes, the minority did a good work, unlike previous budgets where tax policy is introduced and it will be business as usual. So the work they did, that compelled us to explain issues to the Ghanaian people, to me, is commendable. And I've said this on a number of occasions. But as to whether or not we smuggled it in, my answer is we never smuggled anything in. We never surprised them. Every Friday, we read the business statement. The business statement has proposals for the ensuing week.
That's right.
You don't specifically advertise that you are going to take a particular bill. But in that, there's a provision where you write, you propose bills, papers will be laid. Bills that are already in our custody will be considered. So my respected colleague here knows that there are a lot of motions that are tabled. We never get to take them. But as and when they have to be programmed, that notice is served. So we serve them notice through the order paper. The order paper is the document we use in serving notice. If, as it were, it was not listed on the order paper, then you can say you smuggled something in. Right. Even so, we do what we call order paper addendum. Right, so let me go to the next step.
So this was advertised?
Oh, yes, fully advertised.
The minority knew,
of course,
that this was coming on this day?
Exactly.
Thank you.
So we did it, and...
They knew that it was coming on in a particular week.
Oh, I thought you would normally allow me to...
In a particular week, just to correct him, in a particular week, not the particular
day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, so the week started...
The business statement states...
Very well, so...
This is what business will conduct this week.
All right.
Yes.
Please proceed.
Now you're teaching me procedure. So the week started on Tuesday, and we advertised that to be taken, and they were adequately prepared for the business of the day. We agreed on the number to debate, we agreed on the time, and then, you know, when it got to RNS 10 to debate, we noticed that they wanted to do, you know, something different. So, well, it's within their right as Democrats to walk out. Mr. Speaker put the question at the time that the majority leader waived his right to make his own submission. And the question was put. They were walking out, not all of them were out. But it's really not the matter, not the issue here. You see, in Parliament, there's always a presumption of regularity until an issue is raised.
Not only in Parliament.
Well,
in every institution. The law presumes
the regularity unless you have cause to raise a concern.
Right.
And then the law will go into it. So when they were leaving, if you listen to Honorable Harun Idrisu, they never raised any issue of quorum. They only said they were not participating. So they left. But if you exit the chamber, it doesn't mean that your exit will stop public business. It is never the case. They tried to compare what happened in December. At that time, there was division. A division had been called, and Mr. Speaker had ruled on it. So they were doing the counting. And if they take their time to read the Supreme Court ruling carefully, they realize that whatever they are trying to do there now would, with the greatest respect, amount to nothing. Because...
You said it didn't mean anything for them to walk out.
Well, it didn't affect public business.
But why was the majority leader shouting, put the vote, put the question? He said there are some of them still in the house. Put the question. No, why was he in a hurry to get that done?
It is within his right to say that I am not. And they were making noise. So Mr. Speaker, if you watch the video, Speaker said he could not hear. So he said, Mr. Speaker, I have waived my right to speak. Then Mr. Speaker repeated it. The Honorable Majority Leader, are you saying you are waiving your right? So I even got up. I got up to the clerk at table to tell him that that is the position. So Mr. Speaker should put the question.
Is it not the case that he wanted the question to be put before they had completely left the chamber? Because if they did, then the question of quorum will haunt you. So he wanted to be sure. And initially, we heard some of you say that by the time the question was put, there were as many as 30 of the NDC MPs still in the House who had not completely left.
No, I think it was in response to the argument that they had left. But to me, that is really not the issue. You see, the issue of counting arises only when it is raised.
Okay.
So to me, it doesn't matter. It amounts to nothing. Look,
what does it matter though that the minority leader announces in unequivocal terms that they will have absolutely nothing to do with the process?
It's a mere political statement. It doesn't affect the procedure. It's a mere political statement.
The House is a house of record.
Of course. So if you
Does
say...
it take note of that record?
If you say that you would have nothing to do with it, yet you sit in or you walk out, you won't participate. It's your right that you've waived. Should that stop business of the day? No, it cannot.
I'm asking because you seem to suggest that unless the question of quorum or lack of it is raised,
yes,
there is no issue. But even where there is an issue is raised, it cannot be said that there was no quorum.
I don't understand your question. The last part of it, I don't understand it.
If the issue of quorum is raised,
right,
it is possible to say that the minority, whilst they announced that they were walking out, could not be said to have left the house.
Well, hypothetically, that's, I mean, well, let me hesitate a bit in the kind of answer I want to give because I really don't understand your question. But the point here is, they participated in the proceedings, except to say that at the point they left the chamber. I am saying that they could have stayed in to raise the issue of quorum. They didn't. We've passed the Student Loans Amendment Bill. We have also dealt with the Criminal Offences Act. We've also amended. When we're doing that, we were just about 20 or so. The Criminal Offences Act, just a few of us. Are they saying that there was no issue of quorum? The Student Loans Act that we amended. Go back to 1993.
You have amended to take away guarantorship.
That is correct, sir. Go back to 1993. When it comes to actual lawmaking, the bills, people will be walking in and out. That's why Mr. Speaker gave an interpretation to what to him, by our practice, constitutes presence in the house.
Okay.
And all that.
All right.
So, well, I don't understand why they think that by merely walking out, they would ambush us and that we will lack quorum. Let's put that aside. And granted that they are right. You know, on that day, because the decision on Kwesi had sufficed, they themselves, Kwesi was in the office, they didn't allow him to come in. Right. They themselves told him that until the stay of execution process was duly filed, and we're also monitoring in Cape Coast, they themselves told him that don't enter the chamber. So he did not. At that point, the number was 274 because Kwesi's election had been nullified. The number for taking decision couldn't have been 275.
Interesting.
The number, because they themselves stopped Kwesi. So if you listen to Haruna said that now Kwesi's appeal stay of it has been properly filed.
Why are we hearing you argue this interesting point today?
But we are dealing with the issue. This is the first time you've given me an opportunity to argue this. So Kwesi was in Parliament.
Because this is significant.
Of course, I know. It is. And they know it is. Kwesi was there, but they stopped him from entering the chamber because they know that it was going to be illegal. But I'm telling you that at that relevant point in time, at that material point in time, our number was 274, not 275. Okay? So that's one, they should bear that in mind. Third, justiciability of their process at the Supreme Court. I want to refer to...
We'll get back.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. Yes.
We'll get there in a moment.
So, Mama Yaga, now explain to us, as we understand now from Dr. Dominic Ayene, you were sort of the man behind that, idea. You were the architecture of that idea that let's work out. Let's not be part of this quote-unquote bloody business to burden Ghanaians.
Yeah, okay. So...
Hindsight.
Oh, no, not really. You see, for several months now, we've been fighting the passage of the E-levy. We started the fight from the budget itself, because we said, okay, if you're against the principle, and the principle is captured in the budget, and you approve the budget, then implicitly you are accepting the principle. So it was the principle of the E-levy itself that made us to try to reject the entire budget.
You have said it from day one, that you will have nothing to do with it.
Yes, we have. And we will oppose it using whatever means is available to us. And so we have been strategizing and strategizing based on what we thought were the arsenals at our disposal, including fighting, throwing chairs, preventing the first deputy speaker from voting at one instance. We were roundly condemned for it, and etc. We've been fighting with all the commitment that we could marshal. On this particular day, we felt that we had been denied of one of our votes, okay? And we also, at that time, did our, so if we're denied one of our votes, we're looking at the mathematics. So we will be 136, and they will be 137. So if they are 137 and 136, then clearly they will win the vote. Now, a lot of people say, oh, stand and vote and be counted and let them see that you have voted and you've lost through a vote. But at that material time, our calculation was that we're not fighting so that people will see that we are fighting. We are fighting to actually try and stop the passage of the legislation. So if we thought that the best tool to prevent the passage of the legislation is to try and prevent the existence of a quorum, so that it will further be another stumbling block in the way of passing the bill, the levy, then we should deploy it. I mean, that was the thinking that informed the strategy. And we did the calculations, and then we said, okay, walk out. It was something we debated among ourselves. There were those who felt, just stand and be counted, and then, let Ghanaians see that you voted against it, and they won using their numbers, and etc. That's the end of it. So the group that felt, let's deploy another tool and see how that works, won the day that let's walk out, based on consultation among us. So I just want people to know that the story out there that, oh, minority was compromised and this and that, I mean, if we wanted to be compromised, we would have been compromised long ago.
By who?
Exactly. If we wanted to be compromised, we would have been compromised long
By
ago.
who?
I mean, you know that on several occasions, we've come to the floor of the House to say the roads in our constituencies need construction. And the roads minister has come to the floor to say, well, I mean, we need to do your roads. That's why we need E-levy.
But that doesn't amount to compromise.
Exactly. So, no, but it can be a reason why, if I feel that, okay, this funding can help with infrastructure in my constituency, to help with the person who is paying. Since I get a road in my constituency, let me compromise. So I'm saying that if we wanted to be compromised.
One very terrible thing about our democracy, the executive hold, so that in the country, literally nothing works unless the executive says it will work, as far as financing is concerned.
Exactly.
Right.
So we've fought it with real commitment, because we felt Ghanaians didn't want it, and were willing to stand with them in that moment. So that is it. We walked out believing that, based on the Supreme Court ruling,
they will be left with...
You will need a quorum of 138 to be able to take a decision.
And at the time, they had only...
And at the time, they didn't have 138.
But they had what?
Now
we had, the number was
so far as
wait, don't go there yet.
So far as our records show, in the chamber, they only had 136. So far as our records show.
Because of the absence of Adjoa Safo.
Because of the absence of Adjoa Safo in the chamber,
right,
and the absence of the chieftaincy minister in the chamber.
They dispute that the chieftaincy minister was in the chamber.
He was not in the chamber. There are cameras, and the cameras will show.
But if you want to,
there are cameras, and the cameras will show. He was not in the chamber. He never entered the chamber.
West.
Is that okay? He never entered the chamber.
Sisala West. You are talking about cameras. Sisala West.
Okay. Now, I think hold on for me. Note that point.
I'm saying.
Sisala West and Savelugu.
I'm saying.
You are introducing cameras.
I'm saying that there were 136.
There were 136
members of parliament in the chamber at the time they went through consideration stage and third reading.
Yeah. And they would have needed 138.
That's our position.
So because of the absence of Adjoa Safo, and you say also of the chieftaincy minister, that's what they were
136
in
the chamber.
All right.
And that is our case.
What's about yours?
That's our case. That's our case.
Right.
Is that okay?
So that's a question he just asked. How do you answer to that? How about your side?
How many were you in the chamber?
Well, I mean, I'm telling you what our case is before the Supreme Court, and we.
Yeah, I know that's substantive. But information. We just want to know what was the number of the minority in the House.
I'm saying that we are looking at our case on the question of quorum. Okay?
We are not talking about the Supreme Court case now. I said we'll get there.
Now listen.
You've heard this out there. You've heard this out there in the public.
Yeah, listen carefully.
Among the accusation is that, number one, some said.
Let me explain that.
The minority had been stampeded.
No.
You had been surprised. Some of your members had been invited to the Tamale flyover. We call it interchange. I don't know why we call it interchange.
That's not
because
true.
It's a one-way.
Everybody was there. Everybody was there.
Right.
Except question that wasn't in the chamber.
Right.
Let me explain to you.
Okay.
We were 136 NDC members of parliament.
Because of
Kwesi. There were 136 MPP members of parliament in the chamber.
Okay.
But they had the chieftaincy minister outside the chamber. If we were going to stay and vote, they would have brought the chieftaincy minister in. And that would have made them 137.
Now you are clarifying.
Are you getting the point?
Same way you also
they would have brought him in, and there would have been 137.
So you also have two outside.
Now hold on.
In the case of the Kwesi had a legal objection. We talked about Kwesi. We talked about forcefully bringing Kwesi in. And then we came to a conclusion, even if we forcefully bring Kwesi in, afterwards, they could go to court and get the court to determine that Kwesi's vote should be taken out. And will still be reduced to 136.
Okay,
and their 137 will stand. So this is the calculation. So
now
those who argue that, but if they were 136 and you were 136, why didn't you stay to vote? And then there will be a tie. There wouldn't have been a tie because they would have wheeled in.
You would have formed the
quorum.
They would have
wheeled in, First would have formed the quorum. And secondly, they would have wheeled in the chieftaincy minister.
Okay.
But when we walked out, it didn't occur to them to still wheel in the chieftaincy minister.
Okay, now hold on.
This quorum of 137.
Right. Now hold on. What do you say when he brings in? It's a seminal point, I think. He says.
Yes, I'm telling you our response to that.
Yes, the reason Kwesi was not brought in was a legal question. A legal technical question. And that is that long before now, the Cape Coast High Court had determined that he was ineligible. He could not be an MP. So the House was no longer left with 275. In that regard, what will be the number required for quorum? So it appears that if they raise this point, they shoot your suit down.
No, they won't. That's why we say that at the very material time, there were 136 in the chamber. They had a chieftaincy minister outside. It didn't occur to them that to constitute a quorum, they needed to bring the chieftaincy minister into the chamber. Okay?
Okay.
Why?
Okay.
They are the ones who say he was in the ambulance outside. Is the ambulance part of the chamber?
In your suit.
Is the ambulance part of the
let's
chamber?
talk about it. In your suit, what did you say is the quorum in your suit? What did you say is the number they needed to form a quorum?
We take a position that the Supreme Court said you must be at least a majority of all members of Parliament. And we say that the Supreme Court pronounced
must be a half.
130, at least half of all the members of Parliament. And the Supreme Court pronounced that it is 138. That's what we say in our suit.
Right.
Okay? Now,
so if you agree to the argument he raises now,
yes,
the number you need for quorum
Yes.
is not 138.
yes.
How do you surmount that?
How do we surmount that?
Yeah.
We surmount that by establishing factually that even if the number is 137, as he is positing, in the chamber, they were 136. So they didn't even meet the 137 quorum.
How do you answer to his question, which is legal again, about presumption of regularity? You know the law, that there is a presumption of regularity unless it is rebutted, as far as what they did was concerned in the official business.
That's why it is called a presumption.
Right.
A presumption can be rebutted by evidence.
Exactly.
So if we have evidence of video cameras showing that there were just 136 members of Parliament sitting in the chamber, that presumption is rebutted.
Was there the need?
It's a presumption.
Was there the need for
Rebuttable
somebody to
by evidence.
raise? Was there the need for somebody to raise the question of lack of quorum before this kicks in?
For me, following the Supreme Court decision, the key issue is whether there is evidence that you actually have 138 people in the chamber. Following the Supreme Court decision, and if the number is reduced by one that he is claiming, whether you had 137 in the chamber. That's for me.
I thought you had expressed concern that you expected the speaker to count the number before he started the decision.
I have said that several times. I think even in this studio, your PM Express, we expected the speaker at all times to ascertain the quorum before he proceeds. On the basis of the Supreme Court prompting, the fact that the Supreme Court makes a clear distinction between ordinary quorum and quorum to take decision. So, at decision-taking time, at every decision-taking time, any speaker presiding ought to convince himself and establish that there is, in fact, a quorum.
And
so, whether somebody prompts you
at the last time,
yes, and at the last time,
with regards to the approval of the budget,
when they walked out, the speaker told us, and every Ghanaian was watching, that he wanted to convince himself that he had a quorum.
Why was that so?
Process.
Why was that so?
Because he felt that he needed to
because somebody had asked for a division.
So if you ask for a division, does that raise a question of quorum? A division doesn't raise a question of quorum.
It's because you doubt the number.
Listen carefully. A division was because, you see, when you do voice vote and then you put the question,
right?
You may not hear, and the numbers are almost equal, okay? You may not be able to tell from the voices which side is the majority. When you have 137, 138 or 137 in the chamber, and at that time it was 137, 137 because that they were also waiting for Adjo Safo. So 137, they were 137. And then they had two ministers in. That was the finance minister and then the minister of state and minister of finance.
Okay.
And we said that, look, if these two people's voices add, their voice would drown ours.
That's fine.
So we wanted all of them out so that it would be the 137, 137.
That's appreciated.
So, yes.
I want us to go to the substance of.
Yes. So the law, the reason why it wasn't the division that caused the speaker to count. He just wanted to be sure that he had a quorum.
Right.
And so we take a position that
before
when we walked out,
he
should also have ascertained whether he had a quorum.
Okay.
And he would have established that there was no quorum.
Thank you. Martin, let's bring in Martin. Martin, can you briefly share your view on this quorum question and the numbers as the House was left with that Afeyo Marking raises, and how that impacts, if you like, on the suit in the Supreme Court? Hello, Martin.
Yes, hello.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. Yes, I must mention that, to be honest with you, this matter is one that I'm not exactly clear which argument is better. I say so because, you see, we are all clear in our minds that usually by parliamentary practice, if you don't raise a matter of quorum, it's presumed that there is quorum.
Regularity.
So
presumption of regularity.
Excellent. Yes, and the Supreme Court has time with our number upheld such a presumption. Okay. Yes. Now, but because of the recent Abdullahi case, I'm like, oh, then perhaps it's true that there is a change. Yes, because I've looked at it, weighed it, looked at it, and I'm like, So the best is what they've done. Let's see what the court decides. Because, you see, the truth of the matter is that it's also not good for our democracy that anytime, let's say, one side sees that they are about to lose a vote, then they will stage a walkout. For me, I really find it difficult to appreciate that tactic. Yes, it's true. Somebody will say, yes, it's a tool of their game. But, for us as lawyers, we don't like fraud. So when you see defeat staring in your face and you can run out, it doesn't really, and avoid that defeat. It doesn't, align with fraud as we practice.
Are you saying that, well, this is a democracy, so majority will always win. Therefore, the decision by the minority was wrong. They should have stayed in there and make their voices heard.
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the matter of the quorum, okay, if you don't raise it, then by parliamentary procedure, it's said to exist, okay? But here is the case, we have a new Supreme Court decision, and that decision, you see, reading it and saying that there should be at least 138 present, I like it because it appears on the face of it that that one now overrides the parliamentary practice that if you don't, if you don't raise quorum, it's presumed to exist.
Martin, sincerely, what has the Abdullahi case introduced? Has it introduced anything to the rule about the number you need to take a decision in Parliament? Has it?
On the face of it, it appears so, because they are making it clear. You see,
the Constitution in Article 104, forgive me, the Constitution in Article 104.1 says, except as otherwise provided in this Constitution, matters in Parliament shall be determined by the votes of the majority of members present and voting, with at least half of all the members of Parliament present. Did the Supreme Court say anything different from this?
But you know that...
Yes. So, Sam, this is what is different. You see, they've been telling you, even after the Supreme Court decision, that they are able to take decisions with fewer than 100 parliamentarians present once nobody raises the matter. So the difference is that because of the Abdullahi decision, if you take any decision where you had less than 138, the other side can go and complain. So let's see what the Supreme Court says.
I don't understand this. The law says you need at least half of all of the members to take a decision.
Yes.
You have been breaking that law.
Excellent.
Somebody goes to the court and the court confirms that. Keep to the law. You say the court has said anything different? It has not.
It has, because there is a difference. As I said, keep to the law. And even after after that decision, did you hear Honorable Afenyo Martin say that when they were passing the Student Loans Act amendment, there were just about 20 of them?
Of course.
Nobody said anything. Nobody said anything, so no problem. But as and when somebody decides to say something, let's see what the court will say. We are all learning.
If you take a decision with less than, I'm putting the question in a different way, and finally, if you take a decision with less than half of all members present, are you breaching the Constitution or you are breaching a Supreme Court ruling?
Oh, okay, Sam, give me a minute. You see, it's neither of those, if nobody complains. Sam, listen, neither of those, if nobody complains. But if somebody complains, then a decision must be taken by the Supreme Court.
Thank you.
That's it.
All right, thank you. So, what do you think of what they are doing, they are seeking to do in the court? Your mic is off. Your mic is off. No, there's a problem. I can't hear you. The mic is on now, but I can't hear you. Try speaking. No. Okay, okay.
Hello?
Yes. Did I hear you? Yes, you are on. You are on. You are on.
Okay. Okay. Sorry. So the question, I think in the process I've lost
Yes,
it.
I was asking what you think of proceeding to the Supreme Court over this.
Yes, so that it will be clear in our mind what it is. Because already, Sam, let's not forget that that decision in itself, as I've said elsewhere, to the extent that Parliament didn't have a say in it, that decision, you know, I mean, it's not complete in my estimation because they didn't receive arguments from all angles. Okay. So indirectly through this new suit, they will hear from Parliament. And I think even apart from this plaintiff, the Supreme Court ought to invite Parliament itself to present an amicus curiae brief. Let's hear all the arguments.
All right.
For me, this second suit will bring finality to the matter so that we'll know the application of the 138, meaning that must it always be 138 whether somebody raises it or not, or Parliament's practice that if nobody says anything, even 10 people can decide should continue to apply. That's it.
All right. Afenyo raises a question that at the time, the number as Parliament stood was no longer 275. What do you say about that argument?
At what material point?
On the day, and as we speak, until and unless Judge Kwesing had filed his stay of execution of the judgment, because you know he had filed that earlier, and that was keeping him in the house, and then that was thrown out, but he had to file it again.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So for me, at the material point, you see, Honorable Idris mentioned that his stay had now been properly filed. So meaning that he could then participate.
Not at the time. Not at the time of this decision.
No, but at the time Haruna was talking, was that not before they stayed the walkout?
After.
If it had been filed, at the time, very obviously they would have allowed him to go into the house, into the chamber, but they did not.
Oh no, Sam, let's hold back this. Haruna rises and informs the whole world that Kwesing's application has now been properly filed. So
that's not in the chamber.
Press conference.
That's at a press conference.
After the decision.
After the decision, really, at a press conference.
Oh, okay. So meaning that at the time they were working out, Kwesing was not packed.
Exactly. Exactly.
So okay. So at that time, if Kwesing is not packed, they didn't also have Adjoa Safo, and then the other MP was said to be outside. Do we have evidence that the MP was brought in? If he wasn't brought in,
He wasn't brought in.
It was in.
He was not brought in.
Mahama Yarga says he was not brought in.
Not that I said.
Afenyo Markin disagrees that he was brought in.
No, he wasn't brought in.
But there were journalists there. Sam, this is how I will go on this matter.
Exactly.
There were journalists there.
Yes.
I will be extremely shocked that this man was being taken in a stretcher and no journalist captured it. So on that basis, I think I want to believe that he wasn't brought in.
Okay, so you sincerely think that this suit serves any value, any purpose?
Extremely. It's good. Let it clear the doubts once and for all. And especially we'll implore the Supreme Court this side to let Parliament come in. Let's get full argument. Because you see, the decision usually is eroded. The value of this is eroded if a huge constituency, a huge stakeholder is not heard in coming to a decision. I mean, can you imagine? There's a decision affecting how Parliament conducts its business.
All right.
And Parliament was never heard.
Okay.
I mean,
so let's get to Dr. Ken Ashigbe and also Theo Champong, who have just joined us, and let's get to the E-levy proper. So we were taking a cue, if you like, from other countries. In Uganda, they introduced this same thing, and it was 1%. 1%, not like what we sought to do. After public protest, it was reduced from 1% to 0.5%. In the Congo, it was also introduced at 1%. Yeah. After public protests, it was replaced with cash outs only. So you are liable to pay only when you are cashing out. And that appears to me is actually an incentive to keep electronic transactions. So you stay on to transact business electronically rather than taking cash out. In Cote d'Ivoire, they introduced it at 0.5%. After the protest, it was withdrawn. In Malawi, they introduced it at 1%. After protest, it was withdrawn. In Benin, they introduced it at 5%. But on only Momo operators, that was implemented despite widespread public opposition. And then in Cameroon, it was introduced at 0.2%, and it remains at 0.2%. Dr. Ken Ashigbe, why is it that here in Ghana, in spite of the widespread outcry, opposition, which forced the hand of this government to go back and try and explain to people, and we know how cosmetic that's going around and explaining was, we still are keeping to what we have, although reducing it from 1.7 to 1.5.
Thank you, Samson, but you will be asking me to be clairvoyant and be able to read the mind of the Minister for Finance. I am not the Minister for Finance, so I would not know why they've kept it. But we, as an industry, I remember in 2019, we issued a paper on mobile money and that whole industry and how to be able to drive a bit more revenue from it. And so our position have always been the fact that do not tax mobile money itself, and that position really is informed by what we have seen happen in other places, and also because of government's own strategies in pushing the digitalization agenda. Government makes the point of the physical challenge that we have and needing other revenues, but the point also has to be made that in terms of the plethora of issues that we raised, government has taken some of them. Some of them are still outstanding. So, for example, in terms of the rate, we thought that if really we wanted to do this, definitely the 1.5 is given high. And the example of Uganda you gave, even though they have even reduced it to the 0.5, they still have not recovered the challenges that they have faced with the pushback. But so because of all of that as well, government has introduced a lot of things that they put in to be able to try and mitigate the challenge and not affect financial inclusion. So the exemption of the 100 Ghana cedis, initially merchant payments were part of it. Merchant payments have been taken out of it, gov payments. But I also have to concede that as of now, I've not even seen the final bill that was passed by Parliament that has been assented to the President. So I'm not too sure what the details in all of that is. But interestingly, some of these things that have been introduced to be able to make it mitigate the effect is also introducing complexities that would make the implementation of the law itself by GRA and the operators very difficult. Let me give you a simple example. It would mean that before you do any mobile money, if you're on the USSD platform, the system should be able to check that you have all the transactions you have done is less than 100 Ghana cedis. That if you had used that, some of your transactions to pay taxes to government, that should be taken out. It has to go and see whether you have done any transaction on another mobile money account. You have used your mobile money account to do a merchant, a POS, done payment on the POS, done banking. And if you take the USSD that has majority of mobile money, you need just a few seconds, otherwise it will time out. So it's really going to be important that we try and start as simply as possible, so that it does not become a bottleneck. So the concerns that you raised are they've happened in other places and they could easily happen here. And so in terms of the implementation, we need a lot of time to be able to really do it. But I cannot speak to why the finance minister still went ahead despite the issues that we raised.
The point is that there has been a reduction from what originally was contemplated. How should people also welcome that? Because it does appear that too many people don't take that for anything. It doesn't mean anything to them.
Well, you see, Samson, speaking as a social scientist again, and then also as a physical scientist, as an engineer, you've looked at the empirical evidence from other markets. None of the markets have really started at 1.5. It has to be given that some of our members who currently have charges have also promised to, take some of their charges off. So the jury really is out there in terms of the risk and the unintended consequences that have come. So for us as an industry, one of the things we have been preaching is that what can we do to ensure that some of these unintended consequences do not crystallize? So the point you make about the rate is definitely a genuine one. I'm pretty sure that maybe government's argument would then to be to see, we'll look at how it goes, and then if it does not go well, maybe we could reduce it. So that it could be the opposite of your penetrative pricing, where you would go low and then gradually increase it. All of that are things that I'm sure could be are being considered, but that is definitely a genuine risk because. And especially one of the things that we had also been advocating and speaking to government about is the fact that the whole industry, the way it's structured, charges are capped at a particular point. So for mobile money, those who charge, if you do beyond 1,000 CDs, you pay 10 CDs and not more. For some banks, I bank with Fidelity when I use the app as well, your charge is capped. The maximum you can pay is 10 CDs. But now with the way it's structured, it means that if you want to do, now after COVID, in terms of how much transactions you've made has been increased. So if you want to send, say, a 5,000, 1.5% of a 5,000, it's quite significant. And you constantly have to be looking at what alternatives exist, because it's better for government to get a little bit of the tax than people do avoidance, which is legal, and government will not get it. If the bank transfers from person to person is still in there, then it means that, and the exemption at the last time I thought was that it was only corporates that were not going to be affected. If you are buying land from a friend, which is not a corporate, and you are sending money to them, 100,000, 1.5 of 100,000 is very significant. People would then have to find other ways in which this has to be done. So we need to bear that in mind, that in as much as government wants to be able to generate some revenue, the alternative and the enemy, which is cash, still exists and is the thing that a lot of people know and is the thing that people will fall back to naturally. So how do we do all of this? If we agree to do it, how do we do it in such a way that we don't mitigate it? The example of the Congo is a great one because you see, cash out is the thing we want to disincentivize. So when you see the vice president talk about QR code and makes the example of the Wache person, where you are using a QR code to purchase it, it's because when the money gets onto the wallet, people should be able to keep it on the wallet, not just go cash it out, and still be able to use it. Because what that does is that it enhances traceability, enhances the information that the monetary policy people and the fiscal policy people can get to aid their planning. And I'm happy government has, taken out some of the merchant payments out, so that you then at the end of the day, when the merchant, that is a merchant SIM, then all transactions that are on that particular merchant SIM are turned over for the person. The person will just have to put his cost for you to determine the profit the person has made. And then you can apply corporate income tax, which is definitely more than 1.5%, and then be able to then tax at the point of profit, not production. So those are some of the things, the arguments we have made, that if we want to really make sure that the digital platform, which is becoming, is growing and growing, contributes also to taxation and all of that, let's do it in such a way that we don't roll back some of the great things that governments over the years have done in terms of our digitalization, and still be able to get some of the revenue and not, make sure incentivize cash. So those for us are some of the challenges that currently exist. I know also that at the last conversation we had, as we're preparing our minds, waiting for Parliament to pass this particular law, GRA was agreeing that it was going to, instead of at the per person level, do a per wallet to start with, so that it makes it simpler to be able to implement. And so I'm hoping that's what we're going to do, so that in terms of if all the issues are sorted out and it has to be done, it can be done, it can be engineered in a simple manner, and then the complexities can be introduced as we go along.
All right, thank you. Let me go to Theo Champong again. We're looking at the mechanics and the fear that, this will drive down the agenda of digitization or digitalization and electronic, transactions. But when I return, there's something, Martin, I almost missed that I would like you to, because anytime we have discussed this issue about the filing of a process in the court that automatically sort of stays somebody's hand. I remember you have been referring to an authority by the Supreme Court to the effect that the mere filing of the execution, stay of execution, does not change the fact that the MP has been so declared that he's not an MP, and therefore he cannot be in Parliament. It is interesting. So I'll come to you. I want to go to this one and come back to you. All right. And then I find also that before the court, in the recent case, the Attorney General argued that anything other than ensuring that there is that number 138 in Parliament before a decision is taken will be manifestly unwarranted violence against the provisions of the Constitution. Yes, Dr. Theo Champong, let's hear you about the fears and whether you think that this should have been withdrawn. And now that it is passed, how should we go about it?
Good morning once again. My position on Momo, I think is very clear, and it's been within the public domain, that I don't think that we necessarily need it. Nevertheless, the government has passed it, and the question is, how do you ensure that it doesn't derail the digital inclusion agenda? The point really here is the fact that the government assumes that the consumption of mobile money services, to put it in economic terms, we say is inelastic demand. So basically, if people want the convenience of utilizing that service, and that doesn't really push them enough, even if you put 1.5 or whatever tax on it to want to substitute. But if you actually look at the two data points recently from the Bank of Ghana's quarterly statistics, so every quarter they have this data that they release called the Summary of Economic and Financial Data. If you look at November, when the idea was originally proposed the total value of Momo transactions was about 86 billion Ghana cedis. In December of last year, it dropped to 82.9 billion. And then in January of this year, that's the latest data point we have, is actually 76.2 billion. So over the course of about 3 months, we've almost seen a 10-12% reduction in the value of the transactions that are taking place. And what this indicates to me is the fact that we're actually seeing some sort of reaction by consumers to the policy proposal and the announcement. So definitely, I think in the short to medium term, the value and the volume of transactions would come down as consumers adjust to this. And I think certainly you actually would see a lot more cash now being utilized within the system, which would serve as a disincentive to the whole digital inclusion agenda. And that is a challenge that the government, faces, because the whole is
there something to learn from this country, that is Congo, where they introduce it at 1%. After the protests, they replace it with only cash outs. If you are cashing out, then you pay the fee. Is there something there to learn?
That is something which is interesting, right? That you only would pay the tax when you're cashing out. But fundamentally, the point also is that you already have paid for the service anyway. So why are you still being asked to pay money or being paid a tax on something that you already have paid to procure that service, right? So philosophically or fundamentally, I struggle to even accept the concept of having to pay this, tax on something that you already have paid for, or the tax in that sense. But we also recognize the fact that the government says they need money, and in the Congo case, yes, they replace that with only when you do cash out, and you are not paying any tax on the money or the balance which is sitting in your wallet. I don't think in the Ghana case that's what pertains, because I've looked at what was read on the House.
So Doc, my question is there something we can learn from that, so that if after all we are going to have to use this policy, this law, because it's law now, another way to ensure that we don't take, a downward, trajectory as regards our electronic transactions, which is what we need for a digitized economy?
I will be honest with you. I don't think that the state officials are going to do that. I think they're going to fully roll out the policy, and then maybe a few months or down the line, it might come to the point where we actually see that downward reduction in the consumption of the services, and then they'll call the stakeholders around the table, and some of these policy proposals may come back to the table, including from the telecoms chamber, some of the ideas that Ken was talking about. But where I sit, really the challenge now is that the government needs money, and it needs money badly to be able to support the economy. If you look at the fiscal numbers that are coming through in the last quarter, I remember a few months ago, we were on this very platform where the state officials said that the deficit, the public debt rather, as we speak, is below 80%. And some of us were actually saying that if you run the numbers and you do the projections by the end of last year, it was way above 80%. Tell you what, you look at the Bank of Ghana's data points that they released, and it's actually end of year 2021, the deficit was 80.1%, close to what a number of us had indicated, and even the likes of Bloomberg and Reuters had, reported about. So that is the challenge that we are confronted with. And I think really the emphasis now on the side of the state is more about revenue and less about, you know, digital inclusion or trying to soften the blow for consumers, all of that.
Right.
Probably what will happen, and which I'm sort of quite clear in my mind about this, if we see that reduction in the consumption of the service, then in a few months' time, we may be back to the policy table to look at how we tweak the implementation of the E-levy.
Okay, so I think I'm looking at it from this point of view that once it's become law and we need to go ahead, it's going ahead anyway. There's a need to find ways to avoid, you know, anti-electronic transaction conduct. And it does appear that in that regard, some lessons may be taken from the Congo situation, where you are punished for withdrawing cash. Do you think that is something that the government may think about to avoid what is already happening? We have seen queues. We don't know how authentic they are. We have seen queues, videos of queues, people going to their to vendors trying to take out their monies from their wallet.
Well, but eventually, the nature of transactions that we do these days, we would have little choice. And the fact that people would want to, for the convenience of it, rely on Momo. What I think government has been focusing on is the infrastructure that would ensure transparent and reliable system of collection. But again, from the politics of it, I chair the road fund, and I know that the road, the construction subsector of the economy is a major area that if we properly tackle it, would help grow our own economy. Because Samson, you have a contractor who gets a contract, gets a job done, takes a loan from the bank, and is not paid for a year, 2 years, 3 years, and will now have to depend on Goro boys. The funds that come, sometimes you don't know who to pay. You have huge IPCs. But with this, the arrangement that is being put in place would ensure certainty that the funds are in, the banks will be happy with to finance the contractors because they have a long value chain. When you give a job to a contractor, he's employing an artisan, an unskilled labor, the watch seller gets job, the carpenter will get a job, and if the job is for 18 months, the whole lot of value chain that would get opportunity. So yes, it is not palatable to be talking about tax. You know, my wife calls me, say Mr. E-levy. You know, when I get said Mr. E-levy.
Even your wife?
She's been teasing me. Yes, nobody would want to be taxed.
Right.
That is true. But what we have to do, given the times we're in, is take advantage of the opportunity and reassure Ghanaians that look, just as we did, I mean, when we introduced free SHS, we didn't introduce a free SHS levy. We meant well. This has become a necessary evil. Therefore, now we are going to tell you how we're using the money. 2 ways, the roads and the entrepreneurship support to the youth. No, Sam George had an amendment, though he was not in. We carried it. The one that will require the finance minister to be reporting on how funds are disbursed. We took it on, though he was not in the chamber.
Okay.
But we found wisdom in that amendment he had proposed.
The thing I'm talking about is that myself, unconsciously, once it was passed and I'm beginning to do transactions on Momo, unconsciously it strikes me that you lose some money, you know?
Yes.
So I'm saying...
But over time,
I'm saying...
When we are showing to the people of Ghana that look, transparently, this is how your monies are being spent. And I think that is
the calculation, and it can be a lot of money for certain people, for certain transactions. So it is possible that in the near future, to avoid destroying the digitalization and digitization of the economy and transactions, you may contemplate introducing one other layer so that if you are going to cash out, you rather pay a hefty penalty for it, so that it stops you from wanting to take your money out.
People, but I think that's a very technical thing, and it also, makes sense, so that people will not take advantage.
So that they are forced to stay on electronic transactions.
I agree, but don't let us also forget that telcos were charging us 2%. Some telcos were charging us 2% without any legislation.
Please.
Yes.
That's not. But no telco has charged anybody 2%. Please. The charge was 1% when you send. The next person is the 1% goes to different people, and also the charges is a spectrum of charges. It's not 2%.
No, Kenneth, don't misconstrue the point. Wait, don't let us split hairs on this. I do Momo. I send Momo to my constituents. It's 1% here, 1% there. Understand it in an ordinary language, not in the technical space.
And we understand them.
Kenneth,
we understand them because they are doing us a service.
It's a service being provided. Already, when you do it, you will get charged 1% when you are sending. When you are receiving, is also 1%. I mean, that's it.
Okay.
So,
right.
I think that...
Now, hold on. I'm coming to Ayariga now, but let me go back to Martin. Martin, I asked you that question that I felt we left out. In the case itself, this one point that Afenyo and his team may want to pay attention to. In arguing before the court in the suit that has brought us the results that some are very unhappy about, the Attorney General said, the number of members of Parliament who must be present before a decision is made, which is set as at least half of all the members of Parliament. For the current composition of Parliament, that is 275 members. That number clearly must be 138. Thus, for the purposes of Article 104, i.e., taking a decision on any matter in Parliament, at least 138 members must be present. And out of this number, a majority must have voted on the issue. Any other construction will manifestly do unwarranted violence to the clear words of that provision. So I just want the majority to avert their mind to that could also come up whether or not there was a counting or there was not. But my question to you was the articulation being brought in the whether or not at the time the decision was being taken they had filed a stay. You know that fact that many filing an application for the stay is not good enough.
And Sam, okay, I get it. This one is stay of execution, so this is good enough.
Okay.
It's the stay of proceedings that the mere filing is not good enough.
Okay.
So for stay of execution, as soon as you file, it takes effect until the court says, dismisses your application.
All right.
And when you want to stop proceedings in a court of law, that's the effect of the Supreme Court decision in the Repa versus High Court. Ex parte is Dade Kotupon, this La Trust, a popular case in the Supreme Court in there. So the Supreme Court said we had been misleading, or let's say lawyers have been getting it wrong. When we all graduated, we were told that if you file an application for stay of proceedings, it takes effect. So the judge should stop until the higher court decides otherwise. But the Supreme Court has made it clear that no, there is no automatic stay of proceedings.
All right.
A judge can continue. But as for stay of execution, it takes effect.
All right. The Supreme Court has also said that if you have an opportunity, like as it was in Parliament to raise an objection to something, and you don't raise that objection, and the objection is not raised as in timeously, you lose the opportunity to talk about the fact that, something has been done which ought not to have been done. So, is Afenyo not right when he says somebody ought to have raised the question of quorum?
Sam. Yes, you are right. So one of the recent times that this principle you mentioned came up is that Dexter Johnson, where the lawyer didn't raise the objection. Well, the Supreme Court said no. Dexter Johnson versus the Republic. There are a number of other cases.
That's right.
Yes. Yes. So Afenyo's point. So that's why I said for me now, we would need the Supreme Court to clarify whether if you don't raise the point, then it's presumed that there is quorum. That one should hold sway over the 138, because now we're being told that, look, to take a decision, you need 138. If you don't have 138, you don't have a quorum. As against the practice that they were using, which is that, look, even 20, Honorable Afenyo mentioned it today, even 20 parliamentarians meet, and then they take a decision. Nobody says anything. There's no problem. So the Supreme Court should clarify which is which. Should we leave Parliament to continue to be masters of their own procedure, which will be better, or we should hold them strictly on Article 104, which obviously, Sam, is creating a lot of problems, because ministers then will have to leave their ministries and come into Parliament. I was at the ministry a month ago. The Honorable Minister had to meet us around 7 a.m. because he said, look, my brother, I can be called at any time to run to Parliament to vote. So nowadays, I conduct business 7 a.m. and all that. So I think we really need to have a second look. Let the Supreme Court take a second look, and then we may get something better. Okay.
And that may also reinforce the argument that we need to, deal with the Constitution again, where you need, majority of ministers to come from Parliament. You need to separate it so that this problem is dealt with. But Martin, in 1 minute, are you of the school that says because of E-levy, I'm going to either minimize or stop electronic transactions using Momo?
Oh, Sam, obviously, this is going to apply. I mean, it's obvious. I'm a rational human being. It's going to reduce, even though it can be. I can't totally exit Momo, but I certainly will reduce. Yeah, that's how come you see from the beginning. Some of us were of the opinion that government should have started from a lower percentage. 0.5 wouldn't have come this far with all the acrimony, the polarization, and all that. You say 0.5 would have been reasonable. Boom, 1.5, or even natural 5, 1.75, and then people had to rail and rail before they came to 1.5. It's too divisive. Right. Look, I accept that we need a Marshall Plan. It appears this E-levy is our Marshall Plan. Talk of Marshall Plan. Remember World War II? After that, Western Europe was going down. So the Americans brought Marshall Plan to revive the economies of Western Europe. I see E-levy as our potential Marshall Plan. But the division, the polarization may not give us what we intend. Okay, thank you very much. And like Martin says, when we go to all the countries where this has been introduced, Ghana is a place where we are introducing with such a hefty, percentage to begin with. Mahama Yarga now, but what did you want to clarify?
Well, I think in my earlier submission about members in the chamber, you see, he misconstrued that to mean that I was suggesting that 20 people or even less were present and taking decision for Parliament. You see, the Supreme Court in its ruling and the submission by the Attorney General was talking about members present. You see, being present in Parliament and voting, and the issue of physical presence in the chamber. Let's get it also straight. Now, Mr. Speaker made an order that you could observe proceedings. We have facilities where you can observe proceedings from your office and participate in in that.
You disagree with this position when the earlier decision was taken. You were so angry about such an interpretation.
What I'm saying is that,
so you shouldn't be going closer to it.
What I'm saying that notwithstanding, that is Mr. Speaker's position. That is Mr. Speaker's position.
Okay.
I'm saying that
you agree with that position
I'm
now.
saying that is Mr. Speaker's position. It's not a matter of I agreeing or not now. I'm saying that
that is the law. I'm talking about the majority.
I'm saying that is the law. We are guided by what we have as a law.
Oh, you went to rescind a decision of the minority on the basis that you can't use this argument. That's what I'm saying.
No. You're getting it wrong. The decision by the minority that we rescinded, it was on the basis that they didn't have the number to proceed because there had been a call for division and they had proceeded to do the count. The vote and proceedings exposed that.
That is taking the exact number present in the chamber.
Not because somebody raised a question of quorum.
Right. If you use the same argument you are as it were advancing now about people sitting in their offices and the rest of them, then there was a quorum then too.
So the budget was
at the time when you rejected that argument.
Samson, the issue of quorum is provided for in our standing orders.
That's right.
Look at order 40, 48 and read. It's there. I'm saying that until you raise it, you cannot now say that you will not even use other tools available in Parliament, and you are rushing to the Supreme Court.
Okay, thank you. So
that's the point.
So Mama Yaga,
I'm making.
You are saying that, this should not happen. Therefore, whichever means you will use to stop it, you will stop it, even when it has been passed. That's why you are in court.
Exactly. That's why I'm not even participating in the discussions about implementation.
It's a two-sided house.
No,
there must be views.
I'm not participating.
You must lose at one point.
I'm not participating in the discussion about implementation because I believe we haven't reached there yet.
We are there.
Or we are in the Supreme Court.
We are there.
No, we are in the Supreme Court. We are not at the level of implementation.
Your being in the Supreme Court does not stop the implementation.
My argument is that we will win in the Supreme Court, and so whatever effort you are making to implement, it will end up being a nullity.
You can't be so sure that you will win in the Supreme Court.
Well, it will be difficult for the Supreme Court not to rule in our favor.
How?
Because in that same case, the Supreme Court recounted the fact that what was also in issue was the budget, and that the majority set aside the budget on the basis of our number. And the argument was that our number was not up to 138. There were 137, and we didn't constitute a quorum. And therefore, the budget was not properly set aside by us. It's in the facts of that case. The Supreme Court didn't say anything about that. Okay? So today, when the same Supreme Court is confronted with the question of quorum, I doubt if they can say otherwise.
You know, as a lawyer,
you put it to him that they argued the same way in relation to the rejection of the budget. The same argument.
You know as a lawyer that every case, however similar two cases the facts may be, are different. In the courtroom, that's why we say every case is taken on its own.
Yes. But you see, it is difficult if you state a principle. Then somebody relies on the principle, and the facts are looking the same, and you don't apply the principle.
Judicial certainty.
Yeah, you create a big issue for the image of the court. So I don't see how the court is going to...
Are you setting the court up for something here?
Am I?
Are you, the minority, setting the court up for something here?
No, we're asking the court to do its job.
Because you're saying that they cannot hold otherwise.
Yes, because they told us that you need to have a quorum in Parliament. Now, I hear him saying present. And I heard some people say, oh, present is if you come and park at the parking lot of Parliament. How can the parking lot of Parliament show that you are present for the conduct of parliamentary business? How can present be when you come and you are lying in an ambulance outside? How can that be present? Or how can present be when you are sitting in your office and watching? How about if I don't sit in my office, but I lie in my bedroom and log on to Facebook because Parliament is live on Facebook? So if any member of parliament logs onto Facebook from his bedroom to observe parliamentary proceedings, is he present?
Okay. So before we go back to that discussion, I don't want us to go back to that again.
Just
we have spent quite some time.
Yes, please.
Right. And I had raised the issue about raising an objection timeously, but I clearly know, as a matter of fact, that there is no estoppel in constitutional matters.
Exactly. I'm surprised that you are raising this issue that we may exhaust local remedies. That
let him get to that point quickly, and then we'll move on to the next issue.
So I raised the issue of justiciability of the matter, whether or not the court would even have jurisdiction to deal with it.
Okay, so I share the view, like Professor Tuguba, like Professor Aaron Michael Quay, that matters like this are not matters that when they are before the court, we should be shackled from discussing them in the name of getting into contempt. But I suppose that we may not need to go beyond what we have done.
Don't worry, but there's a point I want to make here, which is the Supreme Court own ruling.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So I refer to the Makesebe case against ECG and 2 others. And the Supreme Court referred to Klomega number 2 and said this: with the determination of this case, it is now our expectation that Article 1815 will lend itself to application by the High Court rather than further interpretation by this court. Then the court itself goes further to say, we might just as well add that legal practitioners in Ghana should take guidance from the above decision and advise their client whenever they are consulted. This will prevent them from rushing to this apex court with a view to turning it into a clearinghouse. We would henceforth no longer countenance this attitude of legal practitioners and parties, for that matter, turning the Supreme Court into a clearinghouse for all matters which appropriately should have been initiated in court lower to the Supreme Court. We dare say that indeed the time has come for this court to crack the whip by ensuring that its jurisdiction in Article 2(1) and 131 of the Constitution, which are frequently invoked by parties, are consistent with previous decided cases on the point. So all I'm saying is that if you look at the reliefs, I have them here.
I'm sure we don't want to go.
No, yes, no, but I'm not a lawyer in the matter. I mean,
we are not a lawyer in the matter.
Okay, very well, I won't go.
That's not also
very
mean
well.
that.
Okay, very well. I agree with you.
Comment at
I agree with you.
Okay, thank you.
What I'm saying,
I think it's fair comment. Why he's commenting really doesn't breach anything.
Samson, what I'm saying is that if you look at their own reliefs, on each relief they refer to Justice Abdullahi versus Attorney General.
That's right.
What the Supreme Court is telling you and your counsel is that they have already interpreted this. 104 has already been determined. If you think that there is any issue with it, take the ruling, take it to the High Court for enforcement. Use it as a basis. Don't go back to them for interpretation. That is what the Supreme Court
back for clarification.
That's what the Supreme Court said in Esebe Yeboah. In any event.
That's why you are here saying it is dead on arrival?
Of course. In any event, you are all parliamentarians. All 3 of you are parliamentarians. You know that if the decision, the ruling was by Mr. Speaker. If you want to challenge Mr. Speaker's decision, you know what to do.
Okay.
If you are alleging any illegality, you know what to do. So again, you want to now use the Supreme Court as a clearinghouse.
You are talking about exhausting internal procedures.
I am making a point.
As a constitutional matter, will that apply?
Let me make the point.
Okay.
Let me make the point.
It's difficult to make.
It's not difficult.
Yes, and I give you a minute because we need to.
You see, you are a parliamentarian in a political space. You decide to abandon your role. Then you are rushing to the Supreme Court. So I believe that what they are doing is setting a bad precedent. So tomorrow, you go to Supreme Court again, then you may have to be going to the Supreme Court on the student loans.
Did they exercise a role? Did they exercise a right, or they abandoned the role? So if you can use a minute to react to, you said you wanted to react to that. Then we'll change here.
You see, in this contest, I don't think they even exercise their right. They abandoned their role.
They have a right to boycott.
You see, this whole thing about
in bad faith,
exhausting local remedies. You see, where the Constitution says that
the exceptionality of it
should go to another body for a determination and enforcement is different. For instance, the whole chapter on the human rights, the Constitution itself says that even though those provisions are constitutional provisions, if you want their interpretation and enforcement, go to the High Court. You don't just run to the Supreme Court. It is different from the Article 104(1), which the Constitution, the High Court, the Supreme Court has interpreted. The fact that it has interpreted it and given it certainty doesn't mean that when somebody breaches it, you cannot come to the court for a declaration that it has been breached.
Okay.
But that's what Article 2 is about. Article 2 is saying that you can come to the court for the court to declare that there is a breach of the Constitution.
Thank you.
So we are in court for the court to declare that there was a breach of the constitutional provision.
Thank you very much.
And then the consequences.
Thank you very much. And we also need
a determination of the breach.
We also need not to forget the education that even if local remedies are not exhausted and you go to a court, that's not the basis for throwing out the case. It only stays the case until the local remedies have been exhausted. Then the case will continue. Thank you very much. This is Newsfile, brought to you by Bank of Africa, strong as a group and close as a partner, MTN everywhere you go. Ashasi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Robert & Sons Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care service provider for 31 years. Waylead Properties, home is where one starts. CBG, where we stand with you. Edlom Housing, where spacious homes cost less. Duraplast, where Duraplast goes, water flows. And of course, Rehoboth Properties, quality housing for all. And my guests in the studio and on Zoom have been Alexander Kwamina Apenyoma-King, MP Efutu and Deputy Majority Leader, Mahama Yarga, MP Boku Central and Member, Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee and Delegate, ECOWAS Parliament. Martin Pebu is a rights activist, legal practitioner. Dr. Kenneth Ashigbe is Chief Executive Officer, Ghana Chamber of Telecommunications. And Dr. Theo Echampong, political risk analyst and economist. When we return, Dr. Ken Ashigbe will not be with us. So thank you so very much. We'll be right back.
From my vantage point as President of the Republic, from the focus point as head of government, from the enviable position of a husband, a father, and a grandfather, I know that there is a general sense of anxiety in our nation at the moment. The Ghanaian people are anxious about the economy, the cost of living, income levels, jobs for young people, and even about issues on which we all thought we had achieved a national consensus. When some amongst us are raising questions about the certainties on which we are building the state, it is not surprising that worries about the stability of the government would become cause for heightened tension in the nation. Mr. Speaker, 2 years ago to the day, we were in the midst of a lockdown in the main metropolitan centers of our country. We were truly in the midst of the unknown. It took a while before it even got a name, but a pandemic it was. And the only certainty about it was that nobody knew very much about it. The scientists, the health experts, and the World Health Organization were all united in their view that the virus would cause a lot of devastation. The measures that have been announced by the Minister for Finance are meant to demonstrate that we are aware that we are in difficult times and we are addressing the situation. The belt-tightening measures being set for members of the executive have been elaborated within this context. And I'm hoping that you're going to join us in this undertaking. This government remains alive to its responsibilities to the Ghanaian people. The difficulties of the time notwithstanding, we intend to continue to grow this economy and bring prosperity. That will only happen when we continue to invest in the future. The passage of the Right to Information Act, the Witness Protection Act, the amendment of the Criminal Offences Act, and other laws have enhanced significantly the capacity of the state in the fight against corruption. It is also an undeniable fact that budgetary allocations for institutions actively engaged in public sector accountability, that is the Office of the Auditor General, the Judiciary, Parliament, and the Ghana Police Service, have witnessed significant increases since I assumed office in 2017. Furthermore, we now have a new special prosecutor who appears to have all the wherewithal necessary to exercise vigorously the prerogatives of his office. This pandemic exposed other shortcomings of our country, which have undoubtedly contributed to the anxieties that have befallen the nation. Agenda 111 was born out of this necessity to address some of these shortcomings. At the normal rate of growth, we're not likely to make up the deficit in our health facilities infrastructure for a very long time. Hence the need for a special dedicated program of infrastructural development. We are undertaking the construction of 101 entities, which comprise standard 100-bed district hospitals for 101 districts without hospitals, with accommodation for doctors and nurses. 6 new regional hospitals for each of the 6 new regions. The rehabilitation of the Efia Nkwanta Hospital in the Western region. 1 new regional hospital for the Western region. And 3 psychiatric hospitals for each of the 3 zones of the country, that is North, Middle, and Coastal. It is an ambitious project which must and will be done, and which will create some 33,900 jobs for construction workers, and on completion, some 34,300 jobs for health workers. Mr. Speaker, I have to report, like all major construction projects, it is evident that the initial schedule we gave for the completion of Agenda 111 was overly ambitious. Identifying suitable sites around the country, for example, has turned out to be even more problematic than had been anticipated. I am now able to say that a great deal of the preparatory work has now been completed, and work has started at 87 of the 111 sites. I've been assured that preliminary work on the remaining 24 sites is ongoing. We have every intention of seeing this project through to a successful end, which will enable me to commission all 111 hospitals before I leave office on 7th January 2025. Mr. Speaker, we have saved lives and fared much better than we had feared and the experts predicted. But the consequences of lockdowns, border and business closures, and unplanned expenditures have combined to have a devastating impact on our economy. Our children will continue to be educated and be equipped to run a modern and digitalized economy. The free SHS and free TVET are the best vehicles we have devised to take us to the realization of our goal of an educated and skilled workforce. The computerized school placement system is currently ongoing, and the latest batch of JHS students will soon embark on their free SHS and free TVET education. We have kept to our promise and kept the lights on, in spite of worldwide upheavals in the energy sector, and in spite of the huge legacy debts we inherited. We've almost completed the process of restructuring these debts to reduce their crippling effects on our public expenditure. With the introduction of more bulk supply points in areas such as Kasoa and Pokuase, power transmission has improved tremendously in the southwestern and northwestern parts of Greater Accra. I know that the word unprecedented is often used with careless abandon in our public discourse, but I use it carefully and purposefully. In the 5 years of my government, so far, more roads have been built, improved, and upgraded than at any equivalent period under any government in the history of Ghana. Some 10,885 kilometers of new roads have been constructed in these 5 years. It was my honor and great pleasure to have commissioned the Tamale interchange. The first such interchange in the northern sector of our country, which the people of Tamale gladly celebrated.
Very interesting. I've listened to that presentation about 3 times, and I observed a number of things. Nicely written statements, some very nice phrases that have been used in there, the way certain things have been described. But the question is, what's the value of this exercise? Let's start with you, Theo. Certainly, I mean, the optics. This is a 78-year-old president who is strong and still on his feet. He has a presence of mind. He's standing on his feet for this long and talking, and even the way he goes about making the presentation shows that he's strong. But question is, nice English and all. When I read like 2 years ago, it felt like we had fallen into a dark, malicious, and terrifying abyss. Like, good. Whoever is writing must be doing a good job, and we have known him to write for himself for a long time, but he cannot afford to be doing that anymore. What's the value of this? What were your takeaways? The minority says this does not reflect the reality of the state of the nation.
You know, my friends in Jamestown will say big bluffo. A lot of nice English, and a lot of also statements that were made by the president to capture, in a sense, the times that we are in, right? So he uses words like a lot of Ghanaians there's a sense of anxiety at the moment, and he also recognizes or uses the word that we are in difficult economic times. And in fact, the week before, the finance minister had also addressed the press and in fact stated pretty much the same things that the president did indicate.
When he spoke about the living conditions, he says the bombs might be dropping on cities half a world away, but they are hitting our pockets here in Ghana.
it has always been hitting our pockets. We live in a hyper-globalized economy, so what happens far away in a place like Ukraine definitely has an impact. So that's the import of the statement that the president made. But the reality is that, of course, we elect governments to soften the blow that these impacts otherwise would have on us. And if you look at the challenges that we're in, fuel prices are up, inflation is gone up, the exchange rate is depreciated almost 15% year to date, interest rates have gone up, and then also you have a big issue of revenue mobilization that we need to sort of address. So it is within this context that I sort of situate what the president said to the House in terms of the state of the nation and what they're trying to do to fix what otherwise looks like a very difficult problem. In a sense, I feel a bit like it's a bit of a deja vu going back to 2014, 15 with the similar economic dynamics, right, that are at play. In the past few years, you also saw fuel prices go up, you saw inflation going up, the cedi became a big issue. We even had public lectures on it, and off the back of that, certain statements were made. So the president now says that, well, there are some belt tightening measures that they have introduced now, although he didn't give enough details on that. But the detail comes from what the finance minister told us a few days before that. So there are two things I just want to perhaps highlight here. Okay. The first on the expenditure side of the equation, where the government, as of January, actually said they were cutting expenditure by 20%. And the way they're going to be doing this is basically to cut the amount that the MDEs spend within the public financial management system. And then there's going to be an extra 10% cut in discretionary expenditure going forward. So that's another, if you add that, about 30%. And then you also got the other, what I call smaller optics, which is the 30% cut in the salary of ministers and heads of SOEs. Fewer coupons are going to come down by 50%. There's a ban on travel by government officials, with the exception of certain pre-approved ones, and also a 50% reduction in conferences and meeting expenditure. When you add all of these things collectively, what they do is to help the government meet its original deficit target that they set in the 2022 budget of 7.4% of GDP. If they hadn't announced these extra cuts, then we would have actually probably been looking at a deficit for this year of between 9 and 10% of GDP. So in that respect, the expenditure side of the equation, something has been announced in terms of this belt tightening measures. Question is, how sustainable would they be going forward? And then you also have the revenue side, right, of the equation, where they managed to pass the E-levy despite the concerns that people or some of us have. And there's also now a measure at the port in terms of no duty, no exit, they call it. So all these are extra revenue enhancing measures. But for the everyday Ghanaian, what they want to see really is the cost of fuel and the cost of living come down ultimately. I think we're not there yet because we're still seeing all the ripple effects of what is happening in the global economy still manifesting at the local level. And lastly, even the 15p reduction in petrol prices at the pump that government offered to citizens, when you actually work out the numbers, is actually only approximate to a 2% right reduction in the prices that you pay. So 15p looks big, on paper. The reality is that it's only a 2%, a cumulative reduction. So we're not out of the woods yet by any stretch. But at least the signaling now going forward looks to me as though that something is being done to address the problem.
People have already started raising issue that you say you are taking austerity measures and then the travels except statutory and the rest. And after this, his birthday, he's gone. He's catching a flight, going to attend a TD Jakes program. Question is, how important is that? We need to know if he's attending to that on our budget.
I don't know the details. The question is, was this a pre-arranged travel before the announcement or not? I would have to know the details.
It certainly was pre-arranged. It was pre-arranged.
Okay. So the point really for me then going forward is, sometimes, like I said, our policymakers say one thing and they do another, right? And it all comes down to the optics of it. But also for me, I also want to see how that ultimately is reflected in the economic numbers, in the sense that citizens begin to see a reduction or an improvement, rather, let me put it that way, in the everyday things that they are engaged in. So we want inflation under control. We want fuel prices to be relatively, be moving all over the place.
The church, TD Jakes Church, Porter's House, has a summit. He's attending the summit as one of the speakers to encourage people. You're saying you want to see how that reflects in the numbers in the economy? How?
Yeah, so point is, do these things actually bring in investment flows at the end of the day? Do they create jobs? Do they allow us to go and expand the economy? Can some of the meetings actually be scrapped, right? In the sense that you don't need to travel to have some of these engagements. These days, I sit here in the UK and I talk all over the world, right? And you are able to still speak. But sometimes too, you actually need to travel to have those, meetings and engagements. So we need to work out the cost benefit. But the bigger point is that they cannot tell us to tighten our belts, and in one sense, they have a loose belt, right, on. And that, I think, is rather unfair.
Okay, before I move on, because this is an area, this is one of the areas of comfort for you, tell us, the president continues this refrain. He says, we have kept to our promise and kept the lights on. Kept the lights on. What is it that his government has done to keep the lights from going off? By the time the Mahama regime was exiting, the lights were on. What is he talking about?
Well, at the time Mahama was leaving, the lights had come on. Some new contracts had been signed. What has been significant in the last perhaps 2-3 years is an attempt to renegotiate some of those contracts that were signed, which were costing the Treasury quite a lot of money in terms of the take or pay for both the power purchase agreement and then the gas sales supply agreement, as well. So to that extent, you can actually give them a bit of credit for renegotiating some of the terms of this agreement and even canceling some of the IPP contracts that we signed, which we don't need as a country for at least the next, 5 years in that respect. But the point really is that the light had already started coming on from about 2017 onwards. But that is the supply side of the equation. There's also the transmission and the distribution. And to the credit of the government, we've seen more investment going into the distribution end of the market with the various bulk supply points that you see, particularly in the southern corridor.
Yeah, he spoke about Kaswa and Pokwase.
Yeah, so that has improved the supply to the consumers, but it is not a supply in terms of new generation. The generation issue had been solved. The biggest issue we had or have currently is the one to do with the distribution, the ECG end of the energy value chain, and that's where you see.
So my question is that is a statement accurate when he continues to say that he's kept his promise and kept the lights on because Dumso was over before he took over?
Yes, but Dumso was a supply problem. What we're dealing with now is an intermittency issue in terms of the distribution networks. And I have argued that you need to solve all of the issues from within the entire value chain. So I think largely that statement reflects, right, what we have seen in terms of interventions over the period.
Okay. Martin, let me have your take here. Which areas attract your attention? And I suppose that, Martin, you may be looking at questions of good governance, judiciary, matters of corruption. When it comes to the issue of the corruption fight, for example, he refers to the passage of the Right to Information Act. That's a great one. The Witness Protection Act. Of course, we know that the Right to Information Act, and let's tell the politicians what are facts. At the turn of the elections, the Right to Information Act bill was ready for passage. The MPP sabotaged it so that they would come to power and pass it. It was cooked. He talks about the Witness Protection Act. He talks about the amendment to the Criminal Offences Act, and he says these and other laws have enhanced significantly the capacity of the state in the fight against corruption. He says a special prosecutor appears to have all the wherewithal necessary to exercise vigorously the prerogatives of his office. Special prosecutor spoke to us not long ago. He spoke about needing money. The amendment of the Criminal Offences Act, what's your understanding of which amendment has led to significantly enhance the capacity of the state to fight corruption? I don't understand that.
Yeah, Samson. So as far as I'm aware, the amendment that comes closest is the one about recalibrating corruption now, okay, as a felony. But in actual fact, it's just a change of name because, you know, hitherto, even though corruption was called the misdemeanor in the Act 29, that's the Criminal Offences Act,
right,
popularly called Criminal Code. Under Section 296 of the Act 30, the punishment was up to 25 years. You see, they made an amendment.
That's
so
right.
Though you see misdemeanor in Act 29, the punishment for it in Act 30 was up to 25 years. So the subsequent amendment under His Excellency's regime to make it a felony really is just giving it a new name. But in practice, it was biting that much if only we had people who had been convicted.
It was form and not substance.
Excellent. Okay. Now there's a minimum of 12 years. Okay. I think, yes, that's the thing. So still, but something where it is that low-hanging fruits. So for me, really, that amendment doesn't carry us far. I would have expected that you and I, our favorite provision under, let's say, Article 286, Clause 4, the one that talks about unexplained wealth.
Right.
Something, that is the heart of the matter. That is the one we need to implement, unexplained wealth. Somebody comes into office and then overnight, he's building properties left, right, center. By the time he's leaving, he's amassed so much wealth. That is what we need to implement. That there will be a law to implement the 286 Clause 4. That at the time you are leaving office, you appear before Shraj, okay, automatically, and explain all your wealth. And I'm saying that in our history, when the Jiage Commission sat, our history shows that people used to send evidence to the commission in the night. They go and push it under the doors. So the next morning, by the time the commissioners and staff came, they would find envelopes that contained evidence that Mr. X, upon becoming minister, built this house, bought this fresh car, Bugatti, Lamborghini, I mean, you name them. And so investigate. You remember that the last time the last time I read something about this corruption fight, they said at least 8 out of 10 Ghanaians are scared of reporting corruption and other malfeasances against public officers. Samson, let's pause a minute. Most of our population are scared of reporting. So the only method or a more viable way of fighting corruption is that have a standing committee, then the people can send evidence surreptitiously. You remember this case, Republic versus Apia. He was a special prosecutor even before Martin Amidu under the old law. That was how Apia, who was a special prosecutor himself, was charged, tried, and convicted. Somebody found his bank accounts in England and all that, and took it. They went and slipped it under the doors. They found it at the offices of the commission that was set up. So for me, just passing new laws really by itself, we don't do much. How do we make it easy for Ghanaians to come up and give evidence? One. And then two, that automatic appearance before a commission to explain your wealth. Let's make it automatic. That's what was done practically to Kwame Nkrumah's appointees, the Jage Commission. Even apart from that, there was another commission where almost all the appointees, you see the volumes, everybody, they had to account for their properties. Now we don't do it.
On the anti-corruption front, there's something he's been saying from since he took over, and you can't take that away from him, can you? He speaks about the Office of the Attorney General, the Auditor General, the Judiciary, Parliament, and the Ghana Police Service that have witnessed significant increase in their budgetary allocations since he assumed office in 2017. My only issue is, if you are giving the report of the state of the nation, is it to 2017? But that's something you can't take away from him, right?
Yes, something. Yes, that's good. That one, yes, I doff my hat off for him. Yes, the increased budgetary allocation is good. It's good, especially when it comes to law enforcement. You know, when you interact with the police, prosecutors, and investigators, often transporting accused and suspects to court is such a huge problem. Okay. So with the increase in the number of cars that they've given them, we hope it will trickle down, because you still see police investigators taking accused persons in taxis and the rest to court. So it appears maybe IG at this level, maybe the cars that have been given, some have to trickle down.
All right.
Sometimes you see the police vehicles, but you still see a lot of taxis too. So I doff my hat off to the president. Maybe we should do more, except that now we can't borrow more. So I really wonder where the money will come from.
You may be wrong, because we know that E-levy, it is intended to be used as a collateral to secure a loan, as the Roads Minister told us. Yes, Mama Yarga, the president spoke, and people recognize, I mean, except those his critics who criticize sometimes even without merit. They must criticize all the time, anything, anyhow. He showed that he understood what was going on, the cost of living for people, the absence of jobs, and the rest of them. He sought to empathize, or if you like, sympathize with people. And then he came to issues like roads. He spoke about the 75 kilometers of new roads that have been constructed in the 5 years that he has been president. That's a lot of things he's done.
I mean, as part of the show of empathy, following day he flew out of the country and then went to the US, all at the expense of the state, to attend the church service effectively.
We had known a month ago that he would go at to TDJ's program. It's been advertised. TDJs have been speaking about it.
Yes, and after that, he then committed to his country that he's going to cut costs. And as part of the cost-cutting measure, he's going to reduce travels of public officers. And I imagine that most public officers in this country travel to transact public business. But in his case, he is traveling not to conduct public business, but to satisfy TB Jakes, because this is not public business. When he gets to the UK and he's meeting the Prime Minister at number 10 Downing Street, that I think is public business.
Maybe he will spend a day.
So if
he spend a day in Porter's house, and I hear he has 4 days.
It is
the rest of the 4 days he'll be working for us.
It is the fact that he's paying plane tickets with a whole security apparatus and administrative machinery, because he always needs them around him to travel to the US before he then goes to the UK. The airfare is not the same. The hotel expenditure will not be the same, and their per diems and other things will not be the same. So clearly this is not an expression of empathy. And then he says 10,000 new roads. I mean, he's chairman of the Roads Authority, Roads Fund. He knows that they haven't done 10,000 new roads. At most, the records show that they've done about 4,000 new roads. And even most of them are not really new roads. The evidence shows that most of them are routine maintenance, reshaping of roads, and etc. I mean, every government adds on.
The 4,000,
but just did exactly what you have done.
The 4,000
yes.
is what the Roads Minister reported to Parliament
yes.
about what had been done as at, is it May 2021?
Yes. So,
except that he presented that report this year.
Yes, but the point is that May 2021, between May 2021, there hasn't been much construction in this country. There hasn't been much construction in this country. And this country doesn't even have the capacity in terms of machinery and contractors within 1 year to construct 6,000 roads. We don't have the capacity. Even if we had all the money available, we don't have the capacity to do that. So clearly...
Is it possible that at the time the Roads Minister was reporting, these about a cumulative about 6,000 kilometers were near completion and he didn't want to add them?
I'm saying that.
And so it could take just a few months and then he asked them.
I'm saying that it is impossible. It's not true. We've gone for the details of the roads. Many of them are just reshaping, routine maintenance. They are not new roads. New roads are when you go and take a virgin land and you now construct a new road. Then you go and take a path to a town or a village and then you now construct into a road. If there's already a road and then through erosion and other matters, you need to just reshape and you go and reshape. You haven't constructed a new road. You've done routine maintenance, you have done reshaping and etc.
Sometimes you redo it completely. That'll be a new road.
Every government does something. He has done something. I cannot say that he hasn't done anything. In fact, the road to Boku has been constructed. As we speak, there are major bridges going to Boku that they are busy constructing. So I'm one of those who
I used that road not long ago. It was good.
Yes, I'm one of those who will not deny that some work has taken place. But if you do 4,000 and come and say you've done 10,000, well, you misrepresent your character. And I think that is not.
So why didn't you on the floor admit some of the things that he has supervised, rather than say the things you are saying is not a reflection of the reality? And the minority leader spoke on your behalf.
Yes. If he has done 4,000, he's come and says he has done 10,000. It's not a reflection of reality. We're not saying he hasn't done anything, but capture the reality. Capture what you have done.
Acknowledge what is done and then criticize what there's fault with.
That we do. I mean, is that not what I'm doing here?
The minority leader didn't do that.
Oh, but he just made a general statement. Minority hasn't even spoken yet on the State of the Nation address. He hasn't debated yet. Others are debating it. And we are debating it in the media. So where we need to acknowledge, we do, but you don't tell such grievous lies. And you talk about electricity. I mean, he keeps trying to create an impression that he solved the problem of doing so in this country. Everybody knows that when you came, the lights were on. But I'm admiring his antics. You see, he keeps saying that I have succeeded in keeping the lights on. When he says keeping the lights on, he acknowledges that the lights were on. His job is how to keep it on. He didn't say that I have put the lights on. If he had said that he put the lights on, then he solved the Dumsor problem. But he's admitting that somebody solved the Dumsor problem and he is now just managing to keep it on. What he doesn't do is to admit that the person who solved it and put the lights on also had a strategy for keeping it on. And that was why we went into the compact, the Millennium Challenge account. You know, we had a compact with them, which was energy centered.
Yeah, but you have left unconscionable debts on the country, and they blame partly our woes to some of those debts.
Not really. I mean, the whole idea is that we had an ambitious program of generation. They felt we didn't need to generate as much as we agreed to generate with contractors. And therefore, that ambitious program of generation, you know, imposed burdens on us. But we explained that it was pursuant to a program of selling what we didn't need. So if you've decided that that is not going to be your agenda, that's a different thing. It was our agenda.
Can I clarify that point a bit?
Yes, Dr. Champon, let's hear you.
Yes, it's just a quick intervention. I mean, the idea of wanting to sell what you don't need, fine. But you cannot be selling power at more than 15 cents a kilowatt hour to your neighbors when next door in Cote d'Ivoire, others are selling or generating power below 10 cents a kilowatt hour. So I think that also needs to be put into context that, okay, we over procured power, which we didn't need, and that imposed a strain on the treasury. So I just wanted to clarify that point.
Okay.
Well, right. It wasn't just that you were going to sell, but also we had an ambitious industrialization program, and so we assumed that within that period, you said that in the next 5 years we will not need it, but it means that in 5 years' time we will need it. So everybody and what the vision and the strategy was. But the point is that we had dealt with the Dumso issue, and we had a plan to deal with the ramifications of the policies and measures that we had put in place. Of course, he has to admit that cost of living is unbearable. I was hoping to see in the address a clear strategy to deal with the problem of youth unemployment, because that is a major challenge that we are confronted with in this country.
You didn't hear at all, or you didn't hear enough?
I use the word comprehensive strategy.
Okay.
I heard things about 1D1F, implementation and where it had reached. But clearly, we're all in this country. I am in Parliament, and I see the loan, or what do you call it, the tax exemptions for 1D1F. Many of them are existing factories. Many of them are existing factories.
But
yes.
A dying factory revived better than allowing it to die.
If it is a dying factory, but many of them are not dying factories. Many of them are not dying factories. But the understanding behind the policy when it was announced was to establish new factories, to add to existing factories.
All right.
And to establish the factories in places that didn't have factories. That was the understanding. Not to now go and take existing factories and start also giving them the same incentives as you are giving to those that you are encouraging to establish in areas where ordinary people will not have.
So he spoke about.
And that was why it was one district, one factory. Which
he spoke about the area of agriculture, and said that they were using new technology to attract more young people into agriculture, and he gave us numbers of how they are getting the youth into that. Then when it came to the one district, one factory, he also stated the fact that they are using a strategy that is bringing a lot of youth in it. He says that out of a total of 278 1D1F projects at various stages of implementation in all the 16 regions, 106 factories are currently operational, 148 are under construction, while 24 projects are at mobilization stages. In order to bring the youth on board the 1D1F program, 58 out of the 278 1D1F projects have been developed as enterprises fully owned by youth groups with direct government support, each of the 1D, 1F youth companies are owned by between 40 and 50 youth as shareholders. And he went on to talk about how they are also providing support in the agric industry by providing common user facilities to attract a lot more youth to come in there. So that's jobs.
When you have your public and private universities on an annual basis, graduating about 100,000 young people per annum, you are telling me 40, 50 youth. You have created jobs for 40, 50 youth, and you think that that addresses your problem where annually your universities are graduating close to 100,000 youth. That's the scale of the problem. I'm talking about the scale, how comprehensive it is. It isn't that nothing is being done. What are the figures relative to the gravity of the problem? And that is what I didn't see properly addressed. So, you can come and address the nation and say nice things, but I will look at the figures behind the nice things. So, yes, 1D, 1F. How many years now? You announced this policy before you came into office. You got into office as far back as 2017, okay? Up to 2020, another election. Now you are in 2022. You still can't tell me that as a result of my 1D, 1F program, I have created 200,000 jobs and given details so that we as a minority can then take it, break it down into constituencies, and then go and ascertain whether that reflects the situation.
Agenda 111, he says, will create some 33,900 jobs for construction workers. On completion, some 34,300 jobs for health workers.
Well,
he says he would definitely commission all 101 by the 7th of January. Yep.
Well, you know that even that, they had to pass
2025.
They had to pass a levy. The COVID levy was passed, and in the whole press briefing of the Minister of Finance, they indicated that they're going to use a portion of the COVID levy to provide these hospital facilities.
Okay.
So what is ingenious about taxing us and taking the money to go and construct hospitals? I haven't really been ingenious about anything. It's an easy way of managing a country.
I thought you told me earlier that you're admitting where you have to admit that he's making progress.
Yes.
And then where you have to criticize, you criticize as it were reasonably.
No. But in the first place, these hospitals, the promise was made during COVID. It was supposed to be done immediately as part of our measures to deal with the COVID problem. As we speak, I haven't seen any of these hospitals. He says he will try and then commission them before he leaves office. He will not commission them before he leaves office. I know that for sure. Even if one or two of them may be successfully commissioned. Because the last time we asked, the ministers were talking about procuring land in some communities for these hospitals. It took them 2 or 3 years since the announcement of the policy for them to even get the land to construct. When I know that every chief is scrambling for hospitals in his jurisdiction. And so if you ask chiefs for land, overnight they will get to the land.
He says
but this government managed to take years.
He says the hurdles,
just to secure the land.
He says the hurdles have been cleared.
So
now there's preparatory work. Preparatory works have been completed, and work has started on 87 of the 111.
As we speak, every chief is eager to get a hospital in his jurisdiction.
Okay.
And will be eager to give the land overnight. They didn't need to waste years just to get the land. Secondly, there are model designs of hospitals sitting at the Ministry of Health. Depending on how many bed hospitals they need, they just
no. For this one, they have the designs. For this one, they have the design.
Yes. So what are the things that are taking us?
What do you say about the criticism that the regime, as in your government, quote unquote, is suffering over the state of the nation?
Well, we are in a political space, and like you put it to Ayerga, it will be difficult for them as a party to see anything good in us. And understandably so, we are in a political competition, and they are looking forward to 2024. But you see, this is not an NDC MPP matter. It's an issue for Mother Ghana.
And when you have done almost 11,000 kilometers of roads, that must be a fact.
First, government says it has kept its promises it made. That is true. Maybe in terms of the quantum, people may still have issues, and that is justified. But if you go back into the records and ask yourself, all the things we said in opposition that will restore nursery training allowance, teacher training allowance, introduce free SHS, come up with this policy to drive the private sector called one district, one factory, invest in the youth. All these are happening. But, like you said, and he admitted, it may not be 100%. Now, he was talking about expecting a government policy on unemployment. Perhaps people have not paid attention to the E-levy and what government intends to do with it. Government was bold on using the E-levy to achieve two things. One, fix the roads. I've already talked about the road sector, and I won't repeat myself. But we know that if we properly ensure certainty in payment, contractors will be happy. And in fact, I know that upon passage of the bill, the act, contractors and our financial institutions were very happy, because at least if implementation go the way it's expected and road fund is able to get enough and consistently, there is a plan, repayment plan for IPCs. No contractor would have to go through any guru boy. The unemployment problem that we have at the grassroots will be resolved, because no contractor will park out of sight. Will be at the site to employ the carpenter, the steel bender, the mason, the woman selling wache, selling cocoa would have a job. So if it's a job for 18 months, you know that in the locality, there will be jobs for the boys. So that is a bold statement by government, and I am happy that eventually we've been able to pass the law. The second thing, the formal sector. A lot of our youth, if you come to my office, Samson, you come and meet over, I can't quantify, a lot of CVs. Mahama has CVs in his office. Perhaps you are not in politics, but I'm sure people see you on TV, they'll bring you their CVs.
As we speak now, there are people asking me to connect them to you.
Right. And all of them, when you ask them, so Ghana often. Gas, ECG, Cocoa Board, GMPC, what have you? Now the youth will say, I want to go to police, etc. Can the formal sector, can government take on all of them? No. So that is why the Youth Start program has been introduced. And government says that specifically, I need dedicated funding for it. Try me and prove me. Give me the opportunity. I want to create a new enabling environment for the Ghanaian youth who has his own creative skills, who wants to go into the private sector. But this time, the difference here is that government policy is directing this through the private banks, the financial institutions. So it's no more business as usual. And Samson, I need to emphasize this point, that in this country, all the opportunities we got from government, this one is not limited to MPP or NDC, both. People get opportunity, a majority of them abuse it because say it's coming from my government, I voted for them, I'm a party member. I think that Ghanaians would have to change their attitude on this, because at the end of the day, it is Ghana that loses. I recall my current constituency chairman somewhere in 2004 when Gladys Asma of blessed memory introduced some loans and they were suing people. He lost elections as a constituency organizer because he was the one who went to testify against them. and the court ordered for them to pay. So he lost his election in Winneba. We lack the courage to hold people accountable. So it's like goodies. People don't care. Though it is aimed at helping you to grow, get out of poverty. So I am happy that this You Start program is being properly directed, where the private banks are going to be used as a channel, and there's going to be mentorship program and all that.
Okay.
I would urge the Ghanaian youth who would benefit from this through the passage of the E-levy to take advantage, to create jobs for others.
Okay.
Because really, really seriously, all this whole thing is about job creation.
Let me take a break. I'll return for you to continue.
Yes, sir.
And that's a perfect note to take a break on. He says, try me and prove me. That sounds very scriptural, as in Malachi, where he says we should bring all the tithes into the storehouse of God, and then they'll provide the goodies. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. Okay, Masonic. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. I've seen the tons of messages you have shared that we have to share with the rest of the world, but I'm sorry, we have very limited time. Let's see if we can get our guests to give us about a minute each before we go. And my guests on the show have been Alexander Kwamina Apenyoma King, who is a member, MP, Efutu, and Deputy Majority Leader Mahama Ayariga, Boku Central, MP and Member Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee of Parliament, and Delegate the ECOWAS Parliament. Martin Pebu is a rights activist. He's a lawyer. Dr. Kenneth Ashigwe was with us earlier, and you have been listening also to Dr. Theo Echampong, political risk analyst and economist. So you were on the floor. I have just been hoping that if I took, in the Fourth Republic, just about 10 of the State of the Nation addresses together, it would look to me that the whole of Ghana would be like New York.
Well, Thompson, I was on my earlier point about what the government has been doing so far. And it's a matter of fact for all of us that until COVID, our growth was something very commendable. COVID came, we managed the situation such that it didn't get out of hand. Then, like the president said, the Ukraine-Russian situation, we are the receiving end here. That's the reality. But that notwithstanding, government has not given up. And I just want to make this point again, that this government consistently has acted in good faith. It means well. And where there is a need to genuinely intervene, it does. Look at the situation we had in the country prior to 2017, the electricity tariffs. The government at the time was bold in telling Ghanaians that the cost of generation, the cost of production was so high that we needed to pay the tariffs. We didn't just criticize that position in opposition, but when we came into office, reductions were announced. Households, you and I, enjoyed reductions up to 18%. The records are there. Corporate buyers, those in the mining industry, got reductions up to 30%.
Okay.
So, yes, we cannot have a perfect situation, but all I can say is that with the new opportunity we have to address two major sectors, the unemployment and then the road sector, that people are calling on government to take action. I believe that having put in place this legislation, we are going to make it. Okay. And I'll take this opportunity as I land to say that I've had the benefit of our colleagues who joined us via Zoom, and my own respected colleague. We spent time in ECOWAS Parliament together. where there's no NDC or MPP.
Okay.
And
unfortunately, this is where we draw the curtains. I was hoping that we could go around and get a minute each, but unfortunately, time is up. My outfit, as always, is by Habil's Couture. You can find them at Ajiringano Gate, East Legon. The number to call is 0200 84 1988. My guests have been Alexander Kwamena Apeyoma King, Mahama Yariga, Martin Pebu, and Dr. Theo Echampong. I'm Samson Ladi Anyenini. Have a good afternoon. This has been Newsfile.